started small, almost like a daydream. I'd be in a conversation with someone fully engaged, or at least I thought I was, and then, for just a second, everything would feel distant. Their voice would soften, like I was hearing them through water. I'd blink, shake my head, and everything would snap back into focus. At first, I didn't think much of it. We all space out from time to time, right? But then it began happening more often. It wasn't just the voices that felt muffled. It was everything around me. Objects seemed less solid, almost like I was touching them through a thin layer of glass. My coffee cup felt weightless. My footsteps on the pavement were soundless. Even the air around me seemed thinner, less present, like I was walking through a dream I couldn't wake from. What disturbed me the most were the people. I'd speak to friends, colleagues, even strangers at the store, and there were moments, brief but unmistakable, when they didn't respond. I'd ask a question or make a comment, and they'd just continue with whatever they were doing, as if I hadn't spoken at all. I'd have to repeat myself louder to get their attention. Sometimes, even then, it felt like they were pretending to hear me. At first, I brushed it off as stress. Maybe I was overworked, too tired, too distracted. But it kept happening, these strange moments where I wasn't fully here, where it felt like the world was slipping away from me, or maybe I was slipping away from it. And the worst part, no one else seemed to notice. I started noticing things about my body. At first, it was small, hardly worth mentioning. I didn't feel hungry anymore. I'd go through an entire day without eating and not even realize it until someone pointed it out. I chalked it up to stress. People lose their appetite when they're overwhelmed, right? That's what I told myself, anyway. Then there was the other thing, my heartbeat, or rather, the lack of it. I was lying in bed one night, hand resting on my chest, waiting to drift off, and that's when it hit me. I couldn't feel my heartbeat. My chest was still, no rhythmic thump beneath my skin. I pressed harder, panicking, but nothing. I told myself I was just imagining it, that maybe I was too anxious to feel it properly. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. And it wasn't just that. I started noticing how disconnected I felt from my own body. I would bump into things, stub my toe or cut my hand, but there was no pain. I should have been bleeding, but when I checked, there was no blood, just an empty scrape, as if my skin was more like a surface, not part of me. I tried to ignore it, but every time it happened, the sensation or lack of it left me more unnerved. The mirrors were the worst. I avoided looking at myself for a while, but when I finally did, what I saw chilled me to the bone. My reflection, it wasn't right. There was a delay, like I was moving slightly out of sync with my own image. I'd blink, and a half-second later, the reflection would follow. Sometimes, I'd stare longer than I should, hoping it would catch up, but it never did. My face looked pale, almost translucent, like I wasn't fully there. It was as if the mirror was reflecting someone else, someone fading away. I tried to tell myself it was all in my head. Stress, anxiety, lack of sleep, that's what it had to be. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was happening. Something I couldn't explain. Something I was too scared to face. Death started to follow me. At first, it was subtle, like the rest of the strange things in my life. A friend from work, someone I spoke to almost daily, suddenly didn't show up. When I asked around, I was told he'd passed away in his sleep. He was 36. No health problems, no warning signs. Just gone. I should have felt something, grief, shock, anything. But instead, I felt nothing. It was like hearing about the weather, just another piece of information. I didn't even go to the funeral. Then it started happening more often. I'd read about someone in the news, a random name, dying in a freak accident, a car crash, a heart attack, something so sudden and senseless it didn't make sense. I started to see patterns in it, though I couldn't explain why. The deaths didn't seem random, even if I didn't understand the connection yet. It wasn't just distant stories. It was the people around me, people I knew. My neighbor, a middle-aged woman who always smiled at me in the hallway, slipped on the stairs and broke her neck. I found out a day later, and again, I felt nothing. Not fear, not sadness. Just curiosity. Like I was a spectator, watching it all unfold from a safe distance. And the strangest part? I didn't feel shocked by any of it. It was as if I had already expected it. When I saw the ambulance in front of her building, I wasn't surprised. When I heard the news, it was as if I'd already known. I should have been horrified. People were dying around me, and I wasn't reacting like a normal person. But that's what scared me the most, the fact that I wasn't scared. I couldn't even tell if I cared anymore. All I felt was a quiet, nagging curiosity, like I was trying to solve a puzzle I didn't fully understand. I started to wonder if I was just watching the world fall apart, or if maybe I wasn't part of it anymore. It was a random night when I found it. An envelope buried beneath a pile of old papers on my desk. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just organizing the clutter, trying to regain some sense of normalcy. But when I opened the envelope, my heart, or what was left of it, stopped. It was a hospital discharge form. My name, my signature. The date was from a few months ago. I stared at it, trying to remember why I had been in the hospital, but my mind was blank. No recollection of being admitted, no memory of being discharged. Nothing. That's when the flashes started. Blurry images, like snapshots from a nightmare, flooded my mind. I was in a car. There was a crash, the screech of tires, the sickening crunch of metal. Darkness swallowed me whole, and then nothing. No aftermath. Just emptiness. I sat down, trembling. The memories didn't make sense. If I had been in an accident, how could I not remember? My hands fumbled through the papers, desperate for more answers, and that's when I found it. The death certificate. My name, my date of birth, and a date of death. It was impossible. I was holding a document that said I had died. The accident, the coma, it all started to come back, piece by broken piece. I had been in the hospital, clinging to life. But what happened after? The paperwork said I had been declared dead. But I was here, wasn't I? No, I wasn't. That's when the truth hit me with the force of a wrecking ball. I hadn't woken up. Not really. I hadn't survived the accident. I had never truly left that hospital bed. The moment I woke up was the moment everything started to feel wrong. The detachment from reality, the strange physical sensations, the deaths I couldn't explain, they all made sense now. I wasn't alive, not fully. I was stuck in between, a shadow of my former self, neither here nor gone, trapped in this strange limbo, watching life move on without me. I was dead, or something close to it. And worst of all, I didn't know how to escape, or if I even could. I had to know. If I was dead or whatever I was, I needed proof. I needed someone to tell me I was real. I gathered all the courage I had left and went to my parents' house. I hadn't seen them in weeks, and the idea of confronting them filled me with a mixture of dread and hope. They would see me, they had to. I needed them to acknowledge that I was still here. The house looked the same, but colder somehow, emptier. I knocked on the door, waited, and when my mother opened it, a strange numbness washed over me. She looked right through me. I forced myself to speak, my voice cracking with desperation. "Mom, it's me. Can you see me?" She didn't respond. Her eyes were glassy, vacant, like she was looking at a spot just beyond me. I stepped closer, nearly pleading, "Mom, say something. I'm right here." I reached out to touch her, but my hand felt like it was passing through a cold fog. She turned and walked away, as if I wasn't even there. I stumbled back, feeling like the world was crumbling around me. I tried again with my father, then my sister. Each time it was the same. Those cold, empty eyes, staring right through me. No words, no recognition. It was like I was invisible. Or worse, like I wasn't even a memory. My family moved on without me, going about their lives as if I had never existed. I watched them, my voice rising to a shout, my pleas echoing through the empty rooms of a house I no longer belonged to. I was a stranger in my own life, an outsider peeking through a window into a world that didn't know I was there. I felt it then, a hollow certainty that chilled me to the bone. I wasn't alive, not really. I was an echo, a lingering fragment of someone who had once existed. A ghost, trapped in the mundane routines of a life I could no longer touch. Maybe I was dead, or maybe I was something worse. A soul lost in the spaces between life and death, forever questioning if I was still real. I don't know if I'm alive anymore. I don't even know if I ever was.